Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. We will go ahead and start our work session. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Bajent, Clegg, Halliburton.
Here.
I heard Clegg as well.
Thank you. Sanchez,
Here.
Willits, Woodings,
Here.
4 present, 2 absent.
Thanks. I'll just note, thanks, Council President, for streaming remotely. Councilmember Bajent is dealing with some family health issues, but will be with us at 6 p.m. streaming as well. And with that, I want to welcome the Friends of the Library to our work session this morning. Jessica, do you have a bit of a presentation first? It's really wonderful to have you all here. Thanks for coming and thanks for all you do.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, thank you. I am really honored to be here today to recognize the Friends of the Boise Public Library, as well as to share with you some background on a resolution that is in your packet for consideration in this evening's meeting. And that's a resolution of a memorandum of understanding between the Friends of the Boise Public Library and the Boise Public Library. First, let's talk about the MOU. As you know, last year, the city undertook an effort to standardize lease agreements with the nonprofits that have space in our facilities. So that included two organizations, Step Ahead Idaho, which has a location in our Hillcrest location, and then Learning Lab, which has their classrooms on the 4th floor of our downtown location. At the time, the decision was made to exclude the Friends of the Boise Public Library in this process, due really to the unique relationship between the Friends and the library. The Friends have long used our space, particularly the downtown location. That's where they have a storefront, Tree City Books. They sort materials, they process books, and they make them available to the public. And since they work with materials that have been removed from our collections, as well as donated by the community, their mission is really to support the library and literacy within the community. The proceeds from their sales support our programs. And because of that, we believe the relationship really wasn't the same as a landlord-tenant in some of the other nonprofits. And so we moved forward with a different relationship to codify it. So we determined that a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, really was a much better tool. We worked, both the board of trustees for the library, as well as the board for the Friends, worked with our legal department to really put together that MOU that outlines our relationship, what support we provide to the Friends, what the Friends provide to us, and really codifies that relationship over the next 5 years and how we'll work together. We think this is a great formalization of our longstanding relationship with them. So that is the MOU that you will see later today. And then really, I just want to talk about the Friends. The Friends were established in 1970 to facilitate the purchase of the Salt Lake City hardware building on Capitol. That is where we are today. That is lasting impact that the Friends have had on the community. Since then, they've raised more than $3 million for reading and literacy. They've contributed to the collections of every branch location, first when it opened and then through ongoing programs like our kindergarten readiness program and summer reading. Their book sales are legendary. If you ever drive by the library and see a line of people down the block, that's probably the people waiting to get in on the first day of a sale. It takes an army of volunteers to literally move a mountain of books. They provide staff scholarships to make sure that our staff have the opportunity both to improve their ability to serve the public now, but then to grow in their careers as well. And finally, I want to highlight, their 50th anniversary was during COVID, so we didn't get a chance to celebrate them. But in that time, as we had to pivot, they pivoted as well, really trying to rethink their model, how they could do book sales in a virtual environment. They also stepped up in new ways for the community. They were instrumental in helping us in the summer of 2021 to deliver summer meals downtown and at our Hillcrest location. And then when Interfaith Sanctuary reached out and said, you know, we've got families that were housing in a hotel. Do you have any materials for them? It was the Friends that made that delivery and had materials for them. So the Boise Public Library and our community of learners and readers really thank the Friends for their contributions over the last 50 years and look forward to their continued support. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jessica, for the overview of the long partnership we've had with the Friends. I actually have a proclamation to recognize your long history with us and the impact you've had on the community, and that I wanted to read. And then I don't know if, Jill, you had some things to say. Would you like to say them before I read the proclamation or after? After? You'd like to hear what I have to say about you first? Okay. All right. Well, this is really fun. And I do want to say on the MOA that we'll have later, really appreciate Jessica, your work on this, and of course your team's work on this and that of the Friends. I've enjoyed over the years the book sales and of course the tour that I got to take right before COVID hit us. And I do remember how full it was in there. Not only do I remember that because it was really full and I really love books, but because it helped me better understand all the, you know, the extent of donations that we received and then the extent of volunteer work that occurs to process those and then help support the library, which we really appreciate. But to memorialize, and I think it was Council President Pro Tem's work on leases in particular to kind of memorialize that and become part of our process where we're seeking to be more transparent and equal across platforms, I really appreciate too. And so with that, this has a lot of whereases, but whereas the Friends of the Boise Public Library was founded in 1970 to facilitate the purchase of the Salt Lake Hardware building on Capitol Boulevard as the new home of the Boise Public Library's main library, which is still in existence and use today. And whereas the Friends have connected the Boise community to creators and writers by assisting in the funding of free educational and recreational programming for all ages, by financially supporting annual events like the Boise Comic Arts Festival, dinner, and a book and summer reading. And whereas the Friends have helped the Boise Public Library increase literacy programs for young readers, struggling readers, and English language learners. And whereas the Friends have supported the Boise Public Library staff members by funding important professional development opportunities. And since their establishment, the Friends have given over $3 million to the Boise Public Library through fundraising efforts and have helped fund the development of physical and digital collections for all the Boise Public Library branch locations. And whereas the Friends are supported through the work of over 125 volunteers, spending more than 15,000 hours every year on fundraising, donation processing, and sales. And whereas the Friends of the Boise Public Library continually advocate for open access, intellectual freedom, literacy education, and the importance of libraries as foundations of community and connection everywhere. And whereas the Friends of the Boise Public Library celebrated their 50th anniversary in 2020, and the Boise Public Library and the city of Boise recognized the Friends' continued service as invaluable supporters, and we wish to express the gratitude of our staff and community. I, therefore, Lauren McLean, Mayor of Boise, do hereby proclaim September 11th through 17th, 2022, as Friends of the Boise Public Library Week. Thank you. And congratulations. I believe, did Jessica hand you one? Were you taking a picture of it while I was speaking? I have this one as well that I signed. I think this is for our records and then we keep one in the archives. And then you all have one to display, but go ahead. Welcome, Jill.
Madam Mayor and council members, thank you so much for this recognition on behalf of the Friends of the Boise Public Library. I am the current board president, and I think one of the more remarkable things about this well over $3 million that we've been able to raise for the Boise Public Library is that is generally off the backs of 50-cent, $2, $1 sales. We have no paid staff. We have no executive director. This is an entirely all volunteer organization. And our success really depends not only on the community and their generosity in making donations, in addition to the library discards that we're able to sell, but also in the ability of us, those donations allow us to be able to put affordable books and media in the hands of families and educators in the community that may not have the ability otherwise to have books and media in their homes. And we're extremely proud of being able to be that conduit for those materials to those families. So thank you very much. We look forward to another 50 plus years, and I really appreciate the recognition today. Thank you.
Your council members have some things to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I think that this is just a tremendous outcome from this process of evaluating all of our leaseholds and making sure that everything's fair. And you're right, this is such a unique relationship, and it's been longstanding, and it's very beneficial to our library. It helps save our taxpayers money because you're providing so many resources for staff and the library that would normally come out of the general fund, which is really tremendous. The other thing I think sometimes gets glossed over with things like the book sale is that it's such a tremendous act of conservation to, when you're using books again and again. I know that I bought books from the book sale that have probably been through several households in their lifetimes. It really does help keep paper out of the landfill and keep books going through households and hands and generations. And I think that's really cool. So thank you for all of the work that you do. Thank you for your incredible service to our city in so many ways. And we're glad to have you sticking around.
Madam Mayor. Well, first of all, happy 50th, I think 51st and 52nd birthday, since we didn't get to celebrate them the last couple of years. That's a pretty beautiful accomplishment. I know firsthand the beautiful things that groups of volunteers can do and when people come together. And it's pretty incredible to see a group that's been coming together for so long and the long-term impact that that's had and the impact that that will continue to have going into the future. And there really is something special about when volunteers, regular folks in the community are the ones who get together and believe in it enough to show up day after day after day after day. So I appreciate all the hard work because it is work, and they appreciate the commitment you've made to this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Congratulations on your anniversary. I'm 52. I'm going to be 52. So I appreciate anybody who makes it this far. I think if there's anything we've learned over the last few years, it's some of these institutions that we've kind of taken for granted because they've seemingly always been there. And over the last few years, we've had people scrutinize the value of things like libraries and librarians. And I know for myself, just in connecting with some of our constituents and asking what are the resources that they appreciate in our city. And something that I had not really thought about was the members of our community who are working hard to preserve their own culture. So recently we celebrated Latino Conservation Week. And the young women that I worked with to start that work, they talked about the library and they talked about being able to use the bilingual resources, the books that are in Spanish for children, and how much they appreciate having that resource because it's part of our culture. Folks who come from Spanish-speaking backgrounds, we have gone through waves of oppression in this country. There's a whole generation of us who don't speak Spanish because our parents were trying to protect us from the corporal punishment that they experienced in school when they were children. And so now people are trying to reclaim that part of their culture. And the fact that they're able to do that through the Boise Public Library system is something that really gives me a lot of joy and pride that we can claim that. So on behalf of those folks who are trying to reclaim that part of their culture, thank you so much. I hope you've got some books in Spanish that are getting donated. If not, we will put a call out. But thank you so much for your efforts. Your work is reaching folks at a very deep, deep level.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Thank
Yep.
you. Yes, well, I just wanted to add how grateful I am for the friends over the years. As a young mother, we didn't have a lot of money for books, but our children loved books, and I attended many book sale and bought many a book at that 50 and 25 cents a piece. And those little donations, you're right, do add up, but they also are tremendously important for families in our community who otherwise might not have access to those materials. So thank you for that work. Thank you also for being willing and able and nimble enough to move with the times. These last few years have been difficult for all of us, and you all have stepped up and figured out a way to continue to serve the community, not just in the way that you did previously, but to reach a broader community and serve them even better. And takes a special organization to be able to do that. And then finally, thanks to the city staff for figuring out that this is a much different relationship than a simple tenant relationship. This is a group whose mission is to support city service. And recognizing that and entering into this MOU instead of a tenant relationship is the right thing to do. And I applaud everyone who figured out how to make that happen. So happy birthday, 2 years late, but we hope you stick around for another 50, and maybe on the 100th, we can have a really, really big party.
Thanks so much. It's really great to see you today. And please extend our thanks to all of the friends and library folks. Thanks for coming down. And next up, we have Eric with some interim budget changes. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, members of the council. We have 5 interim budget changes for your consideration this afternoon. 4 of those 5 are 100% cost neutral, with the other being approximately 90% cost neutral, meaning there's an offset for the proposed addition. The first one is to advance funding from fiscal year 2023 to fiscal year 2022 for police vehicle replacement purchases. Normally, those replacement purchases would occur in the year that they were originally budgeted. However, a request to advance those funds into fiscal year 2022 is necessary due to the order bank for those vehicles closing before the beginning of the fiscal year. We need to ensure that we get those orders in so we can get vehicles replaced during the fiscal year 2023. There is an offsetting reduction recommended in fiscal year 23 for the majority of this FY22 adjustment. However, there is a $250,000 increase included as part of this adjustment due to higher than anticipated cost increases for those vehicles. The second adjustment is an increase to the Pilot Memorial River Node project at Julia Davis Park. The bids for that project came in higher than originally anticipated. The third item is for City Hall security doors. This project would replace the basement garage doors under the building with doors at the street frontage, preventing unauthorized access underneath the building. This adjustment would also allow for the replacement of the annex doors. And the increase would be funded through a reallocation of major repairs and maintenance funding allocated to the Public Works Department, a portion of which was for this particular purpose, as well as the cancellation of some badge reader replacements. And that cancellation is attributable to an inability to order that necessary equipment due to supply chain disruptions. The fourth item is for streetlight accident repairs. We've seen actually an increased number of streetlight related accidents. What happens with that when that occurs is there's usually a reimbursement. That reimbursement is booked into our risk management fund. So this adjustment would move funds out of the risk management fund into Public Works to allow for repair and replacement work. And the fifth item is an adjustment to a sewer trunk line extension project in the Water Renewal Fund due to higher than anticipated expenses. A portion of that project would be supported by ACHD, with the remainder supported from a reallocation from a pipe rehabilitation project. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions that the council might have.
Doesn't appear there's any questions, but I take a motion if so.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the FY 2022 interim budget changes as presented.
Second,
We have a motion, a second. Clerk, we call the roll?
Clegg,
Yes,
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
yes.
Woodings.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. All right, and now we have Bree Brush with an update on rail. Welcome, Bree.
Madam Mayor, council members, I'm here to update you on the recent progress we've made on our passenger rail restoration work. Before I get into that, I might just mention some of the recent happenings in the last year related to passenger rail. In June of 2021, this body passed a resolution in support of passenger rail restoration, and it outlined a lot of things that the city would like to see in future legislation in Congress. And of course, that bill later passed. And then we also are part of the Greater Northwest Passenger Rail Working Group, which helps advise a lot of the projects that we take on as a city related to passenger rail. So I'll be here this afternoon specifically to speak to the corridor identification program, but I wanted to show you the depth of funding opportunities made available by the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA. And I also want to mention it was Council President Clegg's leadership with the Greater Northwest Passenger Rail Working Group that advocated for a lot of these things to be included in the bill. So a couple of things you'll see on here, like the Chrissy Grant and the Restoration and Enhancement Grant Program are going to be expanded funding opportunities, but there are existing programs. And then there's also quite a few new programs like the Rail Compact Grant Program, and then of course this Corridor ID program, which I'm speaking about today. The Corridor ID program was established by the Federal Rail Administration specifically to establish a pipeline of passenger rail projects that would guide future capital investments. And to submit a project for this program, it can be entities that are interested in submitting it can be a route that was previously operated by Amtrak, or it can be a new route less than 750 miles. So on the right here, you'll see what would mimic maybe a potential route that we submitted, and that is from Salt Lake City to the Treasure Valley. Caldwell's cut off here, but I think it would be our intent that Caldwell would be the end of the line for a Treasure Valley segment. So to initiate conversations with the FRA about this potential passenger rail line, the very first step is submitting an expression of interest to the FRA, and there's no local match, there's no funding commitment. It just is raising our hand to say we're interested in passenger rail between these two areas. Our approach to developing this statement of interest was really to build a broad coalition of supporters so that we could show the FRA just how many folks in our region would be interested in seeing service like this. And that letter was in your packet, the letter we eventually submitted. But to start with, Mayor McLean and our government affairs staff met with more than 20 individual stakeholders. This was mayors, cities, universities, MPOs, all the way from here to Idaho Falls, chambers of commerce, et cetera. And then we also had hosted Amtrak at the end of August for 2 separate meetings in Pocatello and in Boise. We had a really strong attendance at those. I think people were eager to ask Amtrak questions about their experience with state-supported service and questions about the program, and really tapping into Amtrak as a knowledge source for passenger rail service. What we heard in speaking with many of these folks about participating in our statement of interest was that they were really excited to take advantage of newly available funding in IIJA to meet our transportation needs as a region. And many communities, particularly those in more rural areas, saw this as a potential to fill the void brought on by loss of air service at smaller airports. Next steps, we already did one of these, and that was submitting our expression of interest. We did that on September 2nd. Going forward, we're looking forward to supporting the Utah Transit Authority with their expression of interest while we await direction from the FRA. And we expect the full RFP for the program to be released next month. And that's where we get some of those details like a service development plan, more of the cost estimates, and the next steps we would need to take as a state to realize this vision. It's a very short update, so I'll stand for any questions.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
My first question, Bree, you showed that little segment from Salt Lake to Caldwell, probably. Would the intention be for this to be part of a larger system so that people could get from Utah all the way up to like the I-5 corridor, or what would that?
Absolutely. Madam Mayor, Councilmember Whittings, this is only a small segment, and this is actually the former Pioneer Line route here, but the full network map has a tremendous amount of coverage, not just in our region, but all over the country. And in this segment specifically, I think the future network is envisioned going all the way down to Vegas and then beyond down into Arizona as well, and then connecting off into places in Western Nevada and Eastern Wyoming.
Thank you.
What I'd say is exciting about this opportunity is it's for routes that are less than 750 miles, and two cities have to say they want to be sister cities or city pairs. And so the mayor of Salt Lake is doing the same work with her team towards Idaho as we've been doing with our team towards Utah to build that support. And we're requesting that we be paired as cities for that shorter route. Yes, go ahead, Council President.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to thank the mayor and her team for the work that they've been doing on this. The Corridor ID program really offers an opportunity to go beyond the long distance Amtrak routes that I've been working on and look at more frequent service between those city pairs that can be so important to the economic region. And so looking forward to that. Little bit of expounding on the answer to Council President Pro Tem Whittings. Yes, the full Pioneer Line from Portland to Salt Lake is still in the study that FRA is poised to start any day now. Included in that study as well is the Desert Wind, which goes from Salt Lake to Las Vegas. And as Bree mentioned, it's quite possible that FRA will identify a route that goes north-south through the sort of inland Intermountain West through from Portland to Boise to Pocatello to Salt Lake and then down to Las Vegas. It would be a tremendous route if they do end up identifying that. It's a little bit separate from this. It's the longer distance route, but all of these will, any that are chosen by FRA through this and the long distance study will be eligible for assistance, technical assistance from FRA to then develop the service and operations plans to make them happen. So really exciting stuff.
Anything further for Bree? Thanks so much for your work on this. And our next and final item, welcome Rebecca Hupp. Director of the airport is here with an update on the upgrades that everyone is experiencing at the Boise airport right now.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I thought this would be a great opportunity to share with you some of the progress that we're making on our BOI upgrade program. I think we talked about this pre-COVID, and it was an exciting time. And then it feels a little bit like we've been delayed and waylaid, but we are certainly moving forward full speed ahead. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to share with you some of the exciting things that we talked about early on and that have come to fruition, some of the things that are in progress, and then what lays ahead. So you all have seen this slide before, but I always want to put it at the beginning to show the context of the growth that we are seeing at the Boise airport. This next slide shows Simple Flying, which is one of our industry trade magazines, shows that Boise is actually one of the top 10 most recovered airports in the country in terms of the number of seats that are available. You can see on average, most airports had 95% of their seats available. In 2022, we are up to 118% over what we had in 2019. And we are seeing this in our passenger numbers. Of course, this is always subject to change because of staff shortages, crew shortages, and some of the challenges that I think our industry are seeing across the country, and which many of you may have experienced while you're flying. But what this shows us is that Boise continues to grow above the national average. And so we are working to be able to accommodate that additional demand. Hence why we started on this BOI upgrade program, which was part of our airport master plan. The first part of that project was actually doing some rehabilitation on our aircraft parking apron along Concourse B. The next item was relocating this Idaho Transportation Department hangar to the south side of the airfield. This will enable us to do future construction in this location. We completed this project during COVID. It's relocated to the south side of the airfield near SkyWest. And it was completed to the Green Construction Code, the International Green Construction Code, and that is complete. I want to say we did that in early 21. More recently, if you've been out to the airport this summer, you've seen we're doing substantial work on our parking facilities. The next phase in that is our parking office and exit plaza. If you've traveled through the airport since mid-August, you've seen this development, but this is brand new and open, being used by members of our public. It is part of our parking garage and it marks the completion of phase 1. Currently under construction, you can see our east public garage that's currently in process. You can see the stairs tower taking shape there, as well as the 5 levels. This is about a $32 million project, and we expect that it will be ready ahead of schedule in spring of 2023. And in my opinion, probably not a moment too soon. Also under construction, as part of that, we bid 2 projects together, the public garage and the employee garage, to give us better economies of scale and hopefully better pricing and scheduling. This is the rendering of what it will look like when it's completed. This is what it looks like today. Also very exciting, we'll have over 700 stalls. It'll be a $21 million investment in our infrastructure, and this will be, again, for employee parking. It has a later completion date of fall of 23. Also under construction, if you've been out to the airport, you've seen our security checkpoint. We expanded that in 2019. And we will be adding an opportunity for a 7th lane, and we'll be moving the exit lane over into the meter greeter area. So you've probably seen that if you transitioned through the airport this summer. We're affectionately referring to this as the Checkpoint Expansion 2.0, recognizing that Checkpoint Expansion 3.0 will probably be following shortly behind. This is what it will look like. As I mentioned, we will be moving the exit lanes over into the meter and greeter area to accommodate that 7th lane. And we'll also be removing the vacant gift shop that we haven't had since pre-COVID to make room for more queuing. So this is what it looks like today. The targeted completion is January of 23. We are planning some pauses to accommodate Thanksgiving and Christmas, which are our heaviest travel times. This next one, and we'll talk about this project more in an upcoming council meeting prior to this project going to design review, but our consolidated car rental facility is in design. It is a substantial project, over 1,100 spaces. This is a view as you're coming in the upper roadway, as you're approaching the airport, where you start transitioning to that upper level. This will be directly to your right. So you can see it is within easy walking distance of the terminal. So we'll maintain first class accessibility and convenience for our passengers. This is what the walkway will look like, connecting, obviously this is a rendering, connecting the existing terminal to the rental car garage. So you'll walk out past baggage claim as if you were going to get your rental car today. There'll be a walkway there that will bring you to the rental car facility. It will be completely enclosed. So this will go to design review in October. We're hoping for a groundbreaking in spring of 23. And this will actually be a two-phase project. When we talked with our rental car companies about this, they indicated that they were really excited about phase one, but to accommodate the growth that there would have to be a second phase. So phase one will be completely what we're calling a staging and retail area. And then the phase one budget will be $66 million. Phase two will be a quick turn area. It will be occupied primarily by the rental car companies themselves. And that's where they will do fueling, washing, staging of vehicles, checking oil, windshield wiper fluid, those types of maintenance things that they do in between car rental facilities. We're targeting a completion of mid-2025 with phase two beginning in 2027. And the reason for that is we have an existing tenant and an existing lease that doesn't expire till 2027. And this will allow us to phase the project. This will be funded through the customer facility charge that is charged to every rental car contract that goes through the airport. And then currently in design is a ticket counter expansion. This was not part of our original BOI upgrade because at the time we had sufficient ticket counter space and there were not, quite frankly, the number of new entrants that we've seen into this industry over the last couple of years. And so we always want to be prepared for what could happen here in Boise. And we think it's very prudent to have a design in place for this eventuality. You may recall we have had both Avelo and Allegiant initiate service. Avelo and Spirit, Allegiant was already here, initiate service this past year. And there are several other new low entrant carriers who have expressed interest in Boise. So time will tell if any of those come to fruition, but we don't ever want to be the obstacle to new service. And so this design will allow us to add additional ticket counters within our existing footprint. So if you imagine walking into the terminal on the far west end, for example, down by United, this would be exactly opposite, a mirror image of the existing ticket counters along that north wall. And what we would do is take the baggage handling system that was previously used for curbside check-in and close it and use that for those ticket counters. Our expectation was that we'll build this either if we get grant funding for it or if we have a carrier that needs this additional space. And this would be funded by either a grant or through the passenger facility charge, which is a fee that gets charged to your airline ticket. It would include 8 common use ticket counter positions, so they could be used by any airline. And as I mentioned, it would include modifying the curbside baggage conveyor. And we would expect that if we did this and proceeded with the construction, it would be done in 23. Some of the things that are upcoming, we have Concourse A, which is really the reason that we're doing so much of this work is to move existing facilities and infrastructure out of the way so we can accommodate that additional concourse. This is a rendering of what it could look like It will include, our expectation is 6 passenger boarding gates. It'll also have room for food and retail, 30,000 square feet of concourse space, and it will be long enough that it will require a connecting moving walkway. And then we think it could have as many as 10 gates based on its current design, and it will be able to accommodate up to a 757-300 aircraft. Then, when we finish all of that, it will be time to go back and remodel the existing Concourse B. So this is what it would look like in the final build out. A couple of other
Rebecca,
things.
could you just go back to that picture for a second?
Sure.
Great, thank you.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention a couple of other things that we're working on. We did receive some grants through the bipartisan infrastructure law, and most of these are sustainability projects. We are working on a skylight replacement, which is about $500,000, an electric boiler, which is $750,000. We'll be doing some window replacements, some Americans with Disability accessibility improvements, some terminal lighting improvements, and then more window replacement, ADA, and then family restrooms in 2024 on Concourse B. So, and I didn't mention this earlier, but we are also working on the Amazon hangar, the cargo apron, and Taxiway Sierra. That's a substantial airside development. This is on the southeast corner of the airfield that will allow us to accommodate Amazon. They're investing in their sorting facility, and we're building a taxiway and aircraft parking apron that can be used by multiple carriers. This is a little more detail about the Taxiway Sierra. We are upgrading it from Taxiway Design Group 3 to Taxiway Design Group 5. It was originally designed for regional jets, and now it will be able to accommodate the 767-300. Amazon, their facility will be just over 30,000 square feet. It will also include improvements to Gowan Road, and we are expecting our first Amazon flight in November of this year. And then finally, I think this is finally, we're looking at the possibility of a consortium to build a fuel farm at the airport. As flights continue to increase and grow, obviously demand for fuel will continue to increase. We're looking at a variety of locations, but we think that we have agreed on one. It would actually be owned and maintained by an airline consortium. We would receive ground rent for the selected site. And I think it's just worth noting that we're in the very early stages of exploration and negotiation on this project, but I think it's very likely to come to fruition in the next 2 years. So I would be happy to stand for questions from Mayor and Council.
Well, thanks, Rebecca. The upgrades, I would say expansions at the airport are pretty exciting. And I'd say more exciting in many ways is what's precipitating that. And that is the growth in service that you and your team have been able to provide to the city, which, you know, it seems as though we're often these days announcing new routes, additional routes with current partners, and then new partners. And that's really important for our economic development, the ability of Boiseans to get in and out for both work and play. And so really appreciate the work that you've done and look forward to not having a construction site at the airport. But know that as we're wading through it, it signals all good things for our residents. So appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, thank you so much, Rebecca. I do remember before the pandemic when we were talking about all these very exciting things and then they ground to a halt. It's great to see that our traffic has picked back up and that Boiseans are able to travel as my family has. I feel like we have pent up demand for travel inside ourselves. And so we just want to go everywhere. And so just really appreciate your team increasing people's convenience and comfort while they're in the airport. My question is, so once the rental car facility is completed, what happens to the current area where the rental car counters are located?
We're exploring a variety of options for that existing area. We're looking at it perhaps for an emergency operations center, also for some additional staff area, or perhaps for baggage handling and baggage makeup. We'll do probably a mini master plan session to look at that area, as well as a variety of other, I would say, developing needs at the airport.
That's great. And another thing I want to point out is that your attention to keeping rental cars on site, I think, is really important to point out, because as we travel to different cities, and one of the biggest pieces of convenience is not having to get on a shuttle bus to go get a rental car. It's, once you have kids and baggage, it's a nightmare. So I'm glad that people won't have to have that experience when they come to our airport, and they'll just be able to walk in, grab a rental car, and be on their way. So thank you for making sure that we did that here.
Thank you, Councilmember Pro Tem.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
thank you. A couple of questions, Rebecca. First of all, also thanks for being able to shift gears and get back onto the construction so quickly. We did have to do that quickly in the first place to stop going forward with these, not knowing what was going to be the outcome of the pandemic, and loss in ridership, loss in emplacements, and to be able to pivot again so quickly and go back to construction is, I know, been very difficult, and really want to thank not only you, but the rest of the staff at the airport for the hard work that took. So a couple of questions are these. Once we get the parking garage complete, the new public garage, combined with the economy lot, how many parking spaces will that be total? And as we look out at growth in employments, growth in flights, especially as we add Concourse A, where are we in terms of other airports and the number of spaces that we'll need in the end?
You've asked me several questions all rolled up into one, and I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. And before I jump in and answer that, I do want to give credit to Matt Pataya, who's our Deputy Director of Engineering, and his entire team, because they really are the tip of the spear on all of these projects, and we could not do it without them. Matt was here when we did the last expansion, and he's leading us through this expansion, and his expertise has been incredibly valuable. So I do want to mention that. In answer to the number of parking spaces, I do not have that number off the top of my head. We have about 1,500 spaces in our economy lot. We have, I think, about 700 in the last edition that we did. And we'll be adding about 1,100 spaces. I can get you that exact number. I can email council the exact number, but it will be almost a 1-for-1 with the parking garage addition, with what we have in the economy lot. And I had to cringe a little bit when I heard the mayor say she looks forward to the day that we're not doing construction at the airport, because I'm already thinking that we need to be thinking ahead about what is next to accommodate the growth, because as fast as we are developing these projects, there's more that's coming behind it. And so we always want to make sure that we're ready. So I think that we have seen unprecedented demand. We don't have official numbers for September yet. Obviously, we don't even have official numbers for August yet, because they don't come in until the end of the month. But early indications based on throughput show that in September, passenger travel was up about 16% in the first week of September. So that compared to 2019.
Yeah.
So that's just a huge jump, and not really something that you would plan for. I think if I had been here in the pandemic and told you that I thought we would be 16% above where we were pre-pandemic, I think you all would have thought that I was a little bit crazy. So I say that to say, it's a very long way of saying, I think we need to continue to be nimble. We need to continue to be looking forward and making sure that we're meeting the needs of our growing community. It's exciting, and there's lots of opportunities that we can capitalize on, but we just need to make sure that we're ready and thinking, several steps ahead, not just one or two steps ahead.
Well, thank you for that answer. And that actually does lead into my next question, which, not unexpected that you answered that way. We did a master plan. My expectation at this point is that it's already perhaps out of date. If you look at the kind of growth that we're anticipating. And I know that we still have land available to the west when we do the orchard realignment. We still have land available to the south if we're able to get a taxiway bridge across Gowan. But as we look overall at the airport, I think Council President Pro Tem spoke to this well. The convenience of the Boise Airport is one of the things that I think all of us value and the community values. And we want to ensure that we're thinking ahead so that as this region grows in a way that maybe we hadn't quite anticipated, we can stay where we are, keep that convenience factor, make sure that these investments we're making pay off over the long run because of the use that they'll get. So I just wonder if you could speak briefly about what you anticipate going forward in terms of additional planning that we might need to do to ensure that we really are ready for whatever is coming.
Council President Clegg, thank you for that question. And we are already looking at our next master plan. We completed the last master plan, I want to say in 2017, end of 2017, early 2018. Usually you do those every 5-ish years. We've joked among our staff that our 20-year plan has become our 5-year work plan. And we are executing on that plan continuously. But as I alluded to when I answered Councilmember Wooding's question, there are a number of things that we know that we need to look at in terms of additional planning, recognizing your point that one of the things that makes the Boise Airport probably one of the most appreciated airports is just the convenience of the close-in amenities. And we always want to focus on making Boise Airport more of what it is today, not something different. And so we're always going to be mindful of maximizing that real estate that's closest to the terminal.
Well, thank you. And I look forward to seeing what the new plans show us. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anything further? All right. Well, this meeting was a little faster than we expected. We don't have an executive session, do we? Rebecca, thank you.
Thank you
for everything. And with that, we will recess until 6 o'clock. Thanks all.